Welcome back to another episode of With a Grain of Salt. I am your host, Isaiah Salter, and I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in for yet another week. We are back, my brothers and sisters, WAGOS community, WAGOS family. We are back. I know it's been a long time since we last posted an episode. So much has happened in the last, 4 to 7 weeks. And so just to give a quick update before we get into today's episode, I moved back to North Carolina, and I left Syracuse, New York. I moved back to North Carolina. When I had got home, a crazy opportunity arose to be on a reality show for Netflix, and I had to fly out to Canada on very short notice. I can't talk too much about it because we signed like an NDA, and until it's out, we can't really say much about it, but that was a crazy experience, like a wild experience. So then I came back home after that experience, and I was home for a couple of weeks. And then an opportunity arose, a work opportunity to come back to Syracuse and actually work for my alma mater and do some things that are really aligned with my life and where I'm trying to go. And so I took the opportunity and I came back to Syracuse literally a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago now. And we're here. So we're back in the studio. We're back to regularly scheduled programming. But I'm truly grateful to be back and, kind of leaning into today's podcast episode, which is going to be on new chapters, new frequencies, and new identities. Something that I really, recognized when I was home was it was a great time for me to kind of step away and, really analyze my life, especially my internal state. I felt like internally I was in a different frequency than my actions were aligning with. And I think, a lot of times we can have certain shifts internally. We feel like we don't resonate with certain things anymore, or we feel like we've outgrown certain things, but our external reality hasn't represented that yet, or reflected that yet, And sometimes that lack of reflection can cause some confusion. And I felt like it was a good time for me to, while I was home, really, take a step back, do a self-audit, really look at my life and analyze the areas that need refining, analyze the areas that I need to cut off, and come back to Syracuse with a whole new profound perspective. And leaving Syracuse as a whole, I was in the mindset that I was not coming back. So it was really nice for me to kind of leave with that mindset, like, I'm done here. And so when I was home, I was really like, all right, this is a new chapter for me. This is a new season. And so I was really able to, navigate that time in that way. So coming back, I really do feel like I am a whole new person in this new energy. And I'm really excited for this chapter. It's going to be a great second half of the year. It's going to be a great chapter, whatever chapter we're in this book. But yeah, that's enough talking about the intro. I just wanted to give everybody an update. But I'm incredibly grateful and excited to be back and just get used to seeing my face and hearing my voice because we're going to be posting a lot. So especially on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. So make sure y'all tapped in. But today's episode, like I said, is new chapters, new frequencies, and new identities. This was something that really resonated with me because that's what I felt like that's what I felt like I was navigating when I came back to Syracuse, stepping into a new chapter, embracing a new frequency, and really expressing a new identity, if that makes sense. All rooted in the same source, but just expressing it in a higher vibrational way. So let's get into it. Point number 1. It says new chapters require a new internal state. Starting a new chapter in life isn't just about fresh goals or a different location. It's about raising your internal state for how you live, how you think, how you feel, and what you allow. Your internal state is the energetic signal for the new chapter you're stepping into. New chapters require a new internal state. This is incredibly profound, and I've seen how this has really had a positive impact on my life. Because a lot of times we can step into new environments, new situations, new relationships, but we're bringing a lot of old ways of being, old ways of living, old mindsets, old perspectives into those things. And a lot of times, because we're not aware of that, we wonder why certain things don't work out or unfold in the way that we thought they would, or in a clear way or in an aligned way. And a lot of times, messiness can get involved when you're not clear, not only externally but internally, because remember the internal is first. All right, the internal is first. So yeah, it's about raising your internal state for how you think and how you feel. Your thoughts and your emotions impact how you act, and how you act impacts your reality, right? And it's this cycle, and being very aware of what's going on in your internal state is so incredibly important as you step into new chapters, because new chapters are going to require new internal states, right? This chapter that I'm in is requiring me to think a little bit differently, to act a little bit differently, and ultimately to embody different emotions that are more aligned with the highest version of myself, right? But if I keep, trying to step into new chapters with old ways of being, I'm just causing a lot of rigidity in my own journey. And so it's very important to be aware of the chapters that you're stepping into, and then having some time to reflect on what is needed from me internally to really make the most out of where I'm at, and to really be the best version of myself in this new chapter that I'm in, right? It says you can't enter a new chapter with old chapter behavior. New frequencies demand cleaner alignment, mentally, emotionally, and physically. That's so true. How often do we try to enter new chapters with old chapter behavior? And then we wonder why the new chapter don't work out, right? We wonder why the new chapter don't work out. New frequencies demand cleaner alignment, right? It's all about alignment. As you evolve, you're going to constantly have to refine and align, right? And the goal is alignment. It's not you need to do more, you need to work harder, you need to grind, you need to fight. It's about alignment. Because when you're in a state of alignment, all of the external things will take care of itself. You'll move in a way that's aligned with that inner state of being that you've cultivated, right? But it comes from alignment. A lot of people are misaligned internally, but trying to do all the right things externally and wonder why things still don't feel right. Things still don't work out, right? Things still don't kind of, go the right way. And because you have to get to the inner alignment first, because the inner alignment is always going to come before external alignment. External alignment is just a reflection of internal alignment. So if there's misalignment externally, even though you may feel like you're doing the right things, saying the right things, that's probably a representation of a misalignment internally. It says the outer shifts only solidify when the inner standards rise. Your life doesn't change until your baseline changes. How you speak to yourself, how you carry yourself, and what you no longer tolerate. That's deep, right? It says lasting change, just to elaborate more on that. Lasting change in your life doesn't start with external achievements or changes. Instead, it starts when you internally raise your standard for who you are and how you operate daily. That is so true. True change is internal. It's not external. A lot of times when we think about change, we think about all of these changes externally. But the real change is when you change internally, when you become somebody new energetically, right? When you start to think in alignment with the highest version of yourself, when you start to feel elevated emotions, right, and you start to operate in that daily, you will see a real change in your external reality, because your external reality is a mirror to your internal reality. So when you elevate your internal reality, you best believe your external reality will follow. And the thing that really messes up a lot of people is they wait for their external reality to change before they change, right? So until my external reality changes, I can't feel this way. I can't think this way. I can't do these things, right? So I'm going to wait until these things happen externally to become this person. But the problem with that is when you're operating from waiting for things externally to happen before you change, you're operating from an energy of lack. And remember, you don't get back what you want, you get back what you are. So if you are operating from an energy of lack, chasing after all of these things externally and waiting for your external reality to change, whether you realize it or not, the energetic signature that you are giving out into the universe is lack. And you're going to get back things in the form of places, people, circumstances, and events that affirm that lackness. That's why it can be so frustrating when you feel like you're doing the right things, working your butt off and grinding every day, but things still don't seem to be working out. You keep getting back results that aren't aligned with what you think you're doing right, the hard work, the grinding, all that stuff. But the most important thing you have to remember is that you're going to attract back into your life what you are being internally, right? What thoughts are on a constant cycle in your mind? What emotions are you constantly feeling, right? Because how you think impacts how you act. How you act creates emotions, and how you feel impacts how you think. That is the cycle right there. Right? And so many people, without understanding the internal environment of thoughts and emotions, they just try to change their behavior. They just try to change their actions without putting the right energy behind it. And that's why it can feel like this fight, this grind, and it can be so hard. And you always are going to resort back to your baseline internally. So be aware of that. So lasting change is not an external thing. It's not about just moving to a different location or getting in a different relationship or going here. Now, I'm not saying don't do those things, right? If you have the opportunity to move and, out of a toxic environment or a toxic relationship, whatever it may be, or, you want to make certain changes externally, do that. But also do not neglect the internal work that goes into that, because the energy behind what you do is so much more important than what you actually do. The energy behind what you do, the intention behind what you do is so much more important than what you actually do. A lot of people do the right things physically, but it's not rooted in the right energy. And things don't line up. And you're like, man, I feel like I'm taking all of the necessary steps, all the right actions, but things still don't seem to be working out. You got to get to the energy behind what you're doing, right? Because if you're taking those actions and taking those steps and doing things externally from a place of lack, from a place of shame, from a place of guilt, from a place of desperation, it's not fueled with the right energy. And remember, you're going to get back what you're being, not what you want. So, food for thought. Food for thought. Tony Robbins says, when you raise your standards, your life has no choice but to rise with them. That is so true. When you raise your standards internally and externally, your life has no choice but to rise with them. But often, before we shift, we're waiting for our life to shift. And when you are constantly waiting for your life to shift, you are going to be waiting a long time. You have to take control over the things you have control over. You have control over your standards. You have control over the thoughts and emotions you give energy to, whether you realize it or not. A lot of us were not taught this growing up, so it can sound very, alienated to us at first. But you have to understand this is the truth. You have full agency over which thoughts, which emotions get your energy and attention. Now, how do you cultivate that ability to do that? You have to first become aware of the thoughts and emotions that are cycling throughout your inner being. And how do you do that? You have to cultivate stillness. If you never cultivate stillness in your life, whether it's through meditation or just kind of removing all external stimuli and just being and sitting and becoming aware, you'll never figure out what thoughts and emotions are constantly running wild. And you will allow all of these unconscious programming going on within you to dictate what's going on in your reality. And you'll just call it fate. You'll just think it is just the way it is. Oh my God, it's that person's fault, or it's that thing's fault, or I'm just unlucky. No, you're just unaware. You're just unconscious. And once you make the unconscious conscious, that is when your life will change. Once you become aware of what is going on internally, that is when you will start to take steps towards the path of change. If you want that, right? Because some people do become aware, but there's that saying, ignorance is bliss. Sometimes it's better not to know. Some people become aware, but it's so overwhelming that they're like, nah, I don't even want to change. Because even though where I'm at is painful, at least I know the outcomes. Because change is going to require you to step into the unknown. And that's very uncomfortable. Your ego does not want to step into the unknown. Your ego wants to stay in the known, right? It wants to be able to control outcomes and predict how things are going to work. So the only way for you to live in a way that you can control outcomes and predict what's going to happen in your life is to stay in the known, which is based off of the past, right? But when you want to change, when you want to become an elevated version of yourself, it's going to require you to step into the unknown, because the unknown is where change and creation and opportunity and possibility lie. But this is why perspective is so important. When you want to make that change, when you first become aware of certain things going on in your life, internally, externally, whatever it may be, and you want to change, this is why perspective is so important. You have to understand with that change, there is going to be discomfort, because the moment I step outside of the box that I have been living in for so long, my ego is going to shoot up all this fear, insecurity, doubt, all of these things, anxiety, to get me to go back into that box, because it views that as a negative thing, that we're stepping outside the box. But because you've cultivated the right perspective, you understand that, no, the reason I'm feeling these things is not because I'm doing something wrong. It's because I'm actually finally stepping outside of the programming and conditioning into the unknown. And the unknown is where change and possibility and opportunity lie. Come on. When you raise your vibration, your external reality has no choice but to match that frequency. Understand that. When you raise your vibration, when you raise your energy, right? The emotions that are cycling, the thoughts that are, taking up most of the space in your mind. When you raise those things to match a higher vibration, a higher version of yourself, your external reality has no choice but to match it. Because remember, you don't get back in life what you want. You get back in life what you are. Your thoughts, your emotions, your subconscious beliefs, right? When you raise those things to match a higher version of yourself, your external reality will follow. It has to. That is the law of the universe. It has to follow. It has to follow. But like I said, what do most of us do? We place our betterment on the opposite end of something happening externally. So we're constantly in a state of lack, waiting for things to change around us for us to change. But when you are waiting for things outside of yourself to change before you change, you are operating from a place of lack and scarcity and fear. And remember, you don't get back in life what you want. You get back in life what you are. So you are going to get back more things that affirm that lack, that scarcity, that fear, right? And it's not going to be adding up, and you're going to get so frustrated, and it's going to make you, and that frustration is going to make you think that you need to go even harder externally to get these things. And you're just going to be affirming more of the programming you don't want. You see how this becomes a cycle? It's very eye-opening when you become aware of how this stuff works, and it's a constant thing, right? It's a constant thing. One point I want to make before we move on. The goal is not necessarily to get rid of all of the low vibrational thoughts and emotions. It's to become aware of when they are circulating and to, in those moments, make new aligned decisions, right? So if you have a limiting thought, it's the ability to become aware of that moment where you have an limiting thought, and rather than accepting it, saying, no, that's the old version of us. What we believe now is, and then you follow it up with the thought that is aligned, right? So if you have a thought, for example, I'm not worthy, right? Let's say that is circulating in your mind. It's having the awareness to be able to be like, hold on, let me take a pause in this moment. We're not accepting that thought as our truth, because that is not our truth. Our truth is we are worthy. We are abundant, right? And that's how you reframe and replace, right? But it's not necessarily about getting rid of all of the low vibrational emotions and thoughts, because a lot of people struggle with that. They think when they want to change that they should never have a negative thought. They should never have, a negative emotion, whatever it may be. And so the moment they do, they think they're doing something wrong, or they think they're not changing. It's not about getting rid of these things. It's about shifting your relationship to them, shifting your awareness so that you can catch yourself in these loops or whatever's going on, and learning how to focus your energy on the things that are aligned and take away energy from things that aren't. So when those thoughts and emotions that aren't aligned come up, we just don't give them energy. We reframe and we replace with the things that we do want to circulate. I hope that makes sense. And to finish up point number 1 of practice is list 3 things you're no longer available for in this chapter of your life, right? Example, procrastination, self-doubt, unhealthy dynamics. Then for each, write what that new standard is and read it every morning. Embody that every morning, right? This new chapter that I'm in, I had to look at the things that no longer aligned, and then I had to look at the things that do align. And every morning, I'm going to focus my energy on the things that do align and embodying that throughout the day. And the moments I become unconscious or unaware and the old programming tries to seep back in, I'm going to use awareness and intention in that moment to reframe it and replace it with the things that I do want to focus on. And that is how you take steps towards growth. Come on. Point number 2, frequency is felt before it's seen. Frequency is felt before it's seen. Before you see the shift physically, it'll be felt internally first. Long before the world around you reflects your change, you'll feel different internally. That feeling isn't just emotional, it's vibrational. When your frequency shifts, everything starts to rearrange, often in invisible ways at first. And this is so true and profound. Frequency, right, shifts are usually felt before they're seen. There's usually a shift internally, right? You feel like something is different. You no longer align with certain things, right? Your mindset has changed. And usually that shift is felt before it is seen externally. So you may still be in the same environments, around the same people, but internally you feel like something has shifted. You have to understand that that's usually how it works. Usually the shift happens internally and then the external follows. But a lot of people, they get so discouraged because they feel something different internally and they're not really understanding why that is, but they're still in the same environments around the same people and they don't know why they feel different in the same exact places that they once felt fine. And it can create so much frustration because you don't understand why that's happening. So what we're going to do here is we're going to help you understand what's going on in those moments. Usually frequency is felt before it's seen. So when you move into a new frequency, a new, vibration, a new energy, usually that is something that is felt internally through your mindset, through how you feel, through your thoughts, right? Through the way that you just maneuver in the same environments, right? But nothing is changing externally. But understand, okay, that's not a bad thing. That just means I've changed internally. I've had a shift internally, and now I have to allow the external reality to catch up to me. But I'm not going to get discouraged when the external reality hasn't shifted, even though I've shifted, because I understand that the shift internally comes first. Come on. And this is a very, very deep concept, right? Most people are, I'll believe it when I see it, right? Most people are, I'll believe it when I see it. So I'll believe in my desired reality when I see it. I'll believe in my dreams when I see them. I'll believe in the vision when I see it. I'll believe in the healthy relationship when I see it. I'll believe in the, great career path when I see it, right? I'll believe it when I see it physically. But the truth is, when you believe it internally, you will see it externally. I guarantee it. When you believe it internally, when that becomes your underlying belief, when you really embody these things internally, you will see it externally. So we need to learn how to flip it. Like I said, most people, because we live in a very externalistic, egotistical society, we place our internal reality on the opposite ends of things. We place our internal state on the opposite end of things happening externally, right? But that is completely backwards because the external reality is a reflection of your internal reality. Right. So literally, people don't even realize that they are creating a cycle of something that they don't want. And then they're waiting for something outside of themselves to change that cycle, but not realizing that the only way that cycle can change is for you to change internally. It's a crazy, crazy, eye-opening thing when you understand that. Like, whoa, I need to stop waiting for my external reality to change. I need to stop waiting for the people to change and this to change and that to change before I change. No. Once I change, all of these things will change. And that's also incredibly liberating because that means you don't have to go anywhere to change your life. You don't have to get that thing to change your life. You don't have to be with that person to change your life. You don't have to make that much money to change your life. You can shift internally to a higher vibration, a higher frequency, right? And start to embody that every day and change your life that way. You can do that. And you don't have to go anywhere to do that. You can shift your energy right where you are right now. It just takes attention and intention and showing up for yourself every single day. But when you want to change bad enough, I promise you will show up. And usually, right, there's that saying that usually things have to get so bad for us to finally be like, you know what? Staying the same is more painful than actually changing. And that's when you change. But that begs the question, why wait? Why wait until things get so bad for you to finally wake up and change? Why not start today, right? And if you're listening to this podcast, that means you have the mindset and you're at the level of awareness to be able to accept this, right? And just watching this podcast is part of you taking steps in that direction. So I appreciate y'all. I really do, because we're doing this together. We are constantly changing together. I literally feel like I have changed internally in the past 5-6 weeks. I really do. And that started in the environment that I was, when I was at home, in the same environment I went into as kind of the old version of myself, right? And so, yeah. Yeah. You know it. Come on, y'all. Come on. It says, we're often conditioned to only trust what we can see. But in spiritual evolution, it's the opposite. Your internal being picks up on the shift before your external reality does. We're conditioned to only trust what we can see in our physical reality. That's it. But spiritual evolution is way beyond the confines of this physical reality, right? And your internal being that is connected to the highest version of yourself, it usually picks up on the shift way before your reality does. But like we said, if you only live your life based off of this 3D, three-dimensional physical reality, it's going to constantly feel like a constraint, a fight, a war, a battle, and you're going to have to expend so much energy trying to get the things that you want or become the person that you want to be. So much energy if you just stay stuck in this physical reality, because you have to understand that this physical reality is the effect. The cause are the 4D and the 5D, which is your subconscious mind, and then the infinite field of possibility. If you want to know more about that concept and stuff, go study Dr. Joe Dispenza. His book's right here, but he has multiple books. Go watch his podcast. It's amazing. But yes, the 3D is the realm of effect. So what you see physically is just effect of something that you can't see, of the realm that you can't see, right? And so your internal state of being is connected to the 4D and the 5D. So if you want to shift your physical reality, it's not going to come from just trying to grind in your physical reality. You need to learn how to shift energetically to those heightened states of being. And when you do that, you best believe your physical reality will change, because your physical reality is just is just the effect. You can't change an effect with an effect. You have to change an effect by getting to the cause, right? So if the cause is how you're thinking every single day, how you're feeling every single day, then you need to learn how to shift into a higher elevated mental and emotional state. Higher elevated mental and emotional state. And I'm going to do my best with this podcast and my platform, my YouTube and all that stuff to teach you how to do that one grain at a time. And we're going to do it together. We're going to do it together. It says the feeling of I don't belong here anymore, or this doesn't fit me anymore, is a clear sign you've outgrown an old frequency. Trust it. It's not confusion, it's confirmation. When you feel like I just don't belong here anymore, I do not fit in here anymore, I don't really resonate with these people anymore, you need to be able to trust that. Because that's not there to confuse you. That's there to confirm that you need to go in a different direction, that you've outgrown that version of yourself, right? But here's the thing. A lot of people, because we don't cultivate relationships with ourselves, a lot of times because we do not trust ourselves, anytime our intuition comes up and wants to pull us in a more aligned direction, because we don't trust ourselves, we're not able to trust that intuition. And what should just be a taking steps in that direction turns into anxiety. It turns into overthinking. It turns into indecision and not knowing what to do. And now you're staying stuck, right? So rather than embodying this new frequency, this higher version of yourself that your intuition is pulling you from, because your intuition is connected to your higher self, rather than embodying that, because you don't trust yourself, you don't trust that feeling, right? But because you also aren't aligned with these things that you're still operating in, it creates so much anxiety, frustration, stress, rigidity, right? And it can be so hard to navigate. And you're like, why am I feeling this way? Nothing has changed around me. I don't know what's going on. But you know internally, you don't resonate with these things no more. But you don't know why. You don't need to know why. Just trust it. Trust it. Spend time with yourself. Start to understand yourself, right? Start to cultivate a relationship with yourself so that you can learn how to trust yourself. Keep the promises to yourself, the smallest of things, right? And it's not about being perfect. I always say this, and we're always going to say this. Progression over perfection. It's the little things, right? It's the little things. If you want to start eating healthier, going to the gym, doing certain habits, start very, very minimal, but keep those very minimal promises to yourself so you can start to build up the ability to trust you, right? Spend time with yourself in stillness, in solitude, right? Don't be so quick to wake up and check your phone and be overstimulated by everything going on. Don't constantly be around people, constantly talking about all of these things outside of what you should be doing. Right? Don't constantly be being stimulated by Netflix and all these things. Sometimes just spend time in stillness. And that can be just waking up, not checking your phone, and just going through your whole morning routine, no music, no nothing, just you and your thoughts. Spend time with you. Because the more you spend time with yourself, the more you're going to start to appreciate and love yourself. And the more you appreciate and love yourself, the more you're going to be able to trust yourself. The more you trust yourself, the more you're going to be able to take steps in the direction of the highest version of you and follow your intuition. Come on. This says energy speaks louder than words. Your vibration introduces you before you say a thing. That's very true. Sometimes you can feel somebody's energy before they even say a thing. They walk into a room, or you walk into a room, and you can kind of feel the vibe before a person even says something. Your energy speaks before your words do. A practice for this point is sit in stillness for 5 minutes and scan your body. Ask, where in my life am I holding a lower frequency, right? And then visualize yourself stepping out of that frequency. Visualize yourself stepping out of that frequency and stepping into a version of you that has already released it. Come on. And here's what I want you to visualize. I was going through a practice and I was finding something that I felt like you guys can actually use, because I want to start, helping you guys tangibly with these things. So a visualization practice is the frequency bridge, right? So here's how it's going to go. So we're going to set the scene. So sit in stillness, close your eyes, breathe slowly and deeply, right? Inhale, hold it for 2 seconds, and then exhale. Do that a few times until you feel your nervous system kind of soften and your brain waves kind of slow down, right? Okay, once you kind of slow down and you're in a more relaxed state, imagine this. Visualize your current self standing at the edge of a gently glowing bridge. And you could do this right now with me if you want to, like with me talking, if you want to do it while you're meditating, whatever it is. But visualize yourself standing at the edge of a gently glowing bridge. Visualize your current self standing at the edge of a gently glowing bridge. You're holding a backpack. It's heavy, not with physical weight, but with energetic baggage, right? So as you scan your body, imagine each area of tension or heaviness revealing something you're still carrying. Self-doubt in your chest, fear of judgment in your throat, people-pleasing in your stomach, old stories, old weight on your shoulders, right? Breathe into each one and say to yourself, this is no longer mine to carry. Breathe into each part that you're feeling and say, this is no longer mine to carry. Now, across the bridge, see your elevated self, the version of you who has fully embodied the new frequency, right? The new frequency that you're stepping into. Notice how they stand, how they breathe. What are they wearing? How is their energy radiating, right? They look lighter, they look freer, they look more present, right? And visualize that version of you on the opposite end of the bridge, right? They're not in a rush. They're not shrinking. They are anchored in their truth and the highest version of themselves. And then after that, you got to cross the bridge. One by one, start taking steps across that bridge, right? And all this is while your eyes are closed and you're visualizing. Start taking steps across that bridge. And as you walk, imagine dropping pieces from the backpack over the edge. So as you take a step, visualize every step you're dropping over the edge. Old habits, limited beliefs, low vibrational thoughts, right? And watch them fall and dissolve into light. They're just falling off of your shoulders as you continue to take steps towards the higher version of you. With every step, your posture shifts. Your breath deepens. You feel more aligned. You feel lighter. You're stepping out of heaviness and into wholeness. You're stepping out of heaviness and into wholeness. And then the last step is to merge with your higher self. Merge with the version of you that's standing at the end of that bridge. When you reach the other side, step into the body of that elevated version of you. Merge with them. Feel how light it is. Feel how clear. Feel how grounded. Feel how free. And breathe that in. And let that version of you be your new baseline. And you could do that practice every morning for 2 to 5 minutes, right? And really focus on, after you've merged with that person, focus on bringing that person into every moment throughout your day. And there's going to be moments where you fall back into the old version of yourself, but it's okay, because with awareness and intention, you can catch yourself and align yourself with the highest version of yourself. And you just keep doing that. Eventually, that's how you're going to be operating every moment throughout the day. And you best believe, if you start doing that in the same environment you're currently in, and you start to embody that higher version of yourself on an everyday basis, you best believe your external reality is going to shift, right? But the thing about it is you're not going to be waiting anymore, because you've already become it internally. So you're just going to be operating from the version of you that is already at the best possible outcome or whatever it is in your life. You're going to already be operating in that. So when you are already that energetically and internally, you're not going to be searching it out anymore, right? Why would you search out something you already have internally? So that's incredibly profound. That's incredibly profound. That was a good practice. Point number 3, not everyone will understand your shift, and that's okay. Not everyone will understand your shift, and that's okay. As you change, not everyone will recognize you. Some may feel uncomfortable, confused, or even threatened by your transformation. But you have to understand that that is not your burden to carry. And it can be incredibly difficult to navigate because as you change, you could still be around the same people that you once resonated with so deeply. And as you change and they're kind of staying the same, there becomes this misalignment, right? What was once aligned is not aligned anymore. And that misalignment creates some confusion, some discomfort, some rigidity in those relationships. And certain people could try to make you feel bad for your growth. One, you cannot allow that in because you have to understand that it's just a projection of them. That's not a reflection of you. And 2, that's not your burden to carry. How they respond to your growth and your transformation and your shifts and you stepping into new versions of yourself is not your burden to carry. And I know it could be hard, especially for people you care a lot about and feel deeply for. But this is where you have to be incredibly intentional with how you're maneuvering and how you're moving through your growth and your transformation and making sure that you're not taking on unnecessary baggage from other people because that's not your burden to carry. It's not your burden to carry. When you upgrade your frequency, you naturally shift out of relationships or dynamics that were built on your previous self. That disconnection isn't betrayal, it's evolution. Oh God, this is so good. When you upgrade your frequency, you naturally shift out of relationships or dynamics that were built on your previous self. But a lot of times, because of the society we live in, we can view that disconnection that happens between certain people or environments that we once operated in as betrayal. Or people could try to make you feel like that's betrayal, but it's not betrayal, it's evolution. And you have to be able to make that distinction. I'm not betraying these people. I am evolving. And sometimes with evolution means that we're not going to be aligned anymore. We're not going to be as connected as we used to be. That's not betrayal. It is just part of the journey. But a lot of times, because we don't know how to operate navigate those times, we allow how other people want to make us feel about our growth or our own misconceptions of growth to kind of get in the way and keep us stuck in places or relationships that no longer serve us. But you have to understand that with evolution is going to come disconnection. And that's not a negative thing. It is just disconnection. It's not betrayal. It's not you trying to put somebody else down. It's just you growing on your own unique path. And not everybody in your life was meant to grow with you in the direction that you're going. And that is okay. We've mentioned this before. Sometimes you have to, not sometimes, most of the time, you have to lead with love into relationships, but also be willing to leave with love. No hate, no resentment, right? No condemnation. Love, right? Because I have to grow. I have to evolve. And I have to be willing to do whatever is necessary for me to do with that growth and evolution. And that may mean stepping away from a relationship, stepping away from an environment that used to be so familiar to me, stepping away from old habits that no longer align. And sometimes stepping away from old habits also means stepping away from certain people, because a lot of times certain habits that hold us down are tied to certain groups of people or certain people in general, right? And sometimes when you want to stop those habits and another person doesn't, there's a disconnect. It says trying to explain your growth to people who are committed to the old version of you will only drain your energy. Let your embodiment speak for itself. You don't need to explain your growth to people who are committed to the old version of yourself. That will just drain your energy. It will make you incredibly frustrated. And it's just going to be like you're running on a loop. Like, what's going on here? You don't need to explain anything. Let your embodiment speak for itself. Let you embodying a newer and aligned version of yourself speak for you. Because I promise you, like we said earlier, your energy speaks way before your words do. So when people start to feel the energy shift, you're not going to have to say anything about your growth. It's going to be very apparent, right? It's going to be very, very, bright, right? So just let that speak. Because a lot of times when you try to explain your growth or your transformation to people who are still attached to the old version of you, you have to understand that they're hearing it through the level of awareness that they're at. So a lot of times it's not connecting. So what you're saying, that's not how they're hearing it. And because there's that disconnection, a lot of times it can cause rigidity, it can cause arguments, it can cause fighting, and it's just draining your energy, right? It's not fair to you, it's not fair to them, because y'all both are on different levels of awareness, and it's just not connecting. So rather than speaking with my words, I'm going to allow my energy and my transformation and my shift to do all the talking. Come on. It says some people will never understand your evolution because they were only meant to meet the former version of you. Some people will never understand your evolution because they were meant to only meet that version of you, right? That you've outgrown. And that's okay, right? Some people come into your life for seasons and different reasons. Not everybody's lifelong. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing, right? We're grateful for the times and experiences that we had with people. But when we evolve into newer and aligned versions of ourselves, sometimes not everybody is going to come with us on that evolution. That's not a bad thing. It's just part of evolution, and it's okay. We leave with love. We wish them the best. We leave them with good energy. And we don't view evolution as betrayal. We don't view that as neglect. We understand it's just a part of growth. And sometimes you outgrow people, and that is okay. It's okay. Right? And this is why perspective on growth and evolution is so important, because if you have the wrong perspective on how evolution and growth works, then you're going to think anytime there becomes a disconnect between you and somebody that you used to, rock with as you're growing, you're going to think that's a negative thing. You're going to think something's wrong. Oh, no. It's a part of the journey. It doesn't mean it won't hurt. It don't mean it won't be painful. But understand that hurt and pain sometimes come with growth. It's not a bad thing. Not all pain is bad. Right? Shift your perspective on pain. Not all disconnection is bad. Shift your perspective on disconnection. Sometimes we're disconnected just because we're not aligned anymore. That's not a bad thing. It's just a part of life. I've grown this way. You've grown that way. Cool. I love you. I'm going to keep going in my direction. Come on. A practice. It says practice quiet confidence. Instead of proving or justifying your changes or growth, simply live it. Let your peace and alignment speak louder than your explanation ever could, right? Come on. Practice quiet confidence. Instead of trying to prove or justify your growth, right, or your transformation, trying to get everybody on board or everybody to see it, just live it. Embody it every day. And I promise you that is enough. That speaks volumes. When you are able to just live it and embody it every single day, you don't even need to say anything because it's felt. It is felt. Right? And it's seen through your energy. So focus on that. And point number 4, the last point of the day. A new frequency requires daily embodiment. This is so good. A new frequency, a new version of you requires daily embodiment. Becoming a new version of yourself isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily practice. You don't wait for the external proof to act like the new you. You become the proof by living in that frequency now. That's a pen drop. You don't wait for external proof to act like the new you. You become the proof by living in that frequency now. Like we've mentioned a couple times today, how often are we waiting for things externally to change before we change? How often are we waiting for proof externally to affirm the growth and to start acting like the new us? No. The proof is in the embodiment. The proof is in you waking up every day and making that intent, setting that intention that I'm going to move with alignment. I'm going to move with purpose. I'm going to move in the highest version of myself in everything that I do. I'm going to think in alignment with the highest version of myself. I'm going to focus on feeling in alignment with the highest version of myself and doing that moment by moment every single day to the best of your ability. Embodiment. Embodiment is the bridge between intention and transformation. You build the new identity through repetition, moment by moment. Embodiment is the bridge between intention and transformation. The intention is the desired thing that you want, right? So you want to be more positive. You want to be more elevated. You want to align with the highest version of yourself, right? And between that intention and you actually transforming, That middle ground is called embodiment. So you have this intention. Now you have to practice embodying this intention on an everyday basis. And as you start to embody it every single day, you best believe there will be a transformation in your life. And that transformation usually happens internally first, right? Because the embodiment is an internal thing. The internal starts to express itself externally through your habits, how you talk, how you move, how you show up. And you're going to start to see your external reality transform, right? So intention, embodiment, transformation. Come on. Intention, embodiment, change. Intention, embodiment, growth. Moment by moment. It says true identity work isn't about faking it until you make it. It's about aligning with who you already are at the highest version of yourself. Come on. Understand that there is a multitude of different versions of you. And at any given time, you can step into any version of you depending on where you are vibrationally. So if you want to operate at the highest version of yourself, it's just going to come from a vibrational match internally, right? It's about raising your frequency to the version of you that is already existing, doing the things that are at the highest version of yourself, living that life, because that person already exists. That version of you already exists energetically. It's just about matching that frequency, right? It's like being a radio. Let's say you're a radio, right? A radio has a multitude of different channels, and depending on the channel, different music is playing, right? It's the same with our life. If we're the radio, depending on which station we are at, that is the reality we are living in. And each station is operating at a different frequency. So there's a very high vibrational version of ourselves, and there's a very low vibrational version of ourselves, and then there's everything in between. And if you want to operate in the more heightened, aligned, higher versions of yourself, it's just about changing the channel to those stations, aligning your energy with those frequencies. You don't need to do more things externally, get more things externally. You need to align internally. The external world will take care of itself. I guarantee it. But you are a radio station. Tune into the reality that you want to live by shifting your energy, starting to embody that on an everyday basis. How do I do that? I'm glad you asked. Awareness. You must first become aware of the energy that you are embodying right now. How do you do that? Cultivate stillness, meditation, journaling. Start to become aware of the thoughts and emotions that are running cycle in your mind and in your body. And then after you do that, set a new intention. What reality do you want to live? What do you want to feel? How do you want to show up every single day? Start to write that out, right? Let your imagination run wild, right? After you have that as a new intention, now in your meditation, focus on one, becoming aware, right? So getting into those very relaxed states of being by just sitting and focusing on deep breaths, bringing yourself to the present, and then visualize that desired reality that you've written down and the emotions tied to it, and then visualize it and feel what it would feel like if you were living in that reality right now. And you keep showing up for yourself every single day. And eventually, you're going to start embodying it because you're starting to feel it more and more and more. And your body does not know, this is a scientifically proven fact, your body does not know the difference between an actual event and the vivid imagination of it. So if you are visualizing yourself at the highest version of you, and you're feeling that every single day, embodying that, your body literally thinks you're living in that reality right now. Do you know how profound that is? So that means you're not going to be constantly searching for things externally to try to affirm that reality. No, you are already it internally, and you're going to start operating from that place. And that's really when you're going to see your external reality change. Because remember, you don't get back in life what you want, you get back in life what you are. So you are going to start seeing things around you affirm that version of you that you are embodying every single day, the highest version of yourself. Come on. Come on. It says, act like the version of you that already has what you desire, and reality will follow. Act as the version of you that already has the reality you desire, and I promise you, the external world will follow. Act as that person. Now, that's not fake it until you make it, because it would only be fake it until you make it if that person didn't exist. That version of you already exists on the spiritual plane. So it's just about tapping into it energetically. That's not fake it till you make it. That's embodying what already exists. That's literally what that is. It's not fake it till you make it. That's real embodiment. A practice for this point is create a 3-minute embodiment ritual every morning. Stand tall, breathe deeply, and ask yourself, how does the best version of myself show up today? And move into your day from that state. Move throughout your day in that state to the best of your ability. Come on. Man, what a beautiful way to get back into the podcast and the swing of things. I really missed you guys more than you know. I'm grateful to be back. And we're not stopping anytime soon. I'll tell you that. That's a long enough break. That's a good break for a long time. We're going to get back into it heavy. So, yeah, definitely follow me on Instagram if you haven't, at Isaiah Salter X, or you can follow the podcast at WAGOS. Follow me on TikTok at Isaiah Salter X. Follow me on YouTube. My personal is Isaiah Salter, and my podcast is WAGOS. And continue to stay tuned for the journey. There is no WAGOS without each and every one of us. And we're all in this together. We're a community. We're a family. And it's a beautiful thing that we're cultivating here, truly. And there's so much more to come from this. And with me, really feeling like I've, jumped into a new frequency, a new energy, I feel like that's just going to express itself more in a multitude of different ways with my creativity and the content and social media and things of that nature. And just things that we're going to do together, man. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing, man. I cannot express my gratitude for each and every one of you for this platform, to be able to show up and do this every single day. I truly feel like this is a part of me operating at the highest version of myself. It's a way that I express my purpose, and without y'all, it isn't possible. So thank you guys so much. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. And remember, most importantly, to take everything with a grain of salt. I will see you guys next week. Deuces.